Susanna, sorry to interrupt, but I think no one can hear you. I'm the only one here. I see that Mindi can't either.
Mercedes, do you want to introduce Susanna and yourself?
Yes, let me start by doing that. Perfect. Thank you, Mindi. Hello, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us today. Well, I'm Mercedes Corsia. I'm an online marketing manager at IBT, and I'm being joined by Susanna Hardy, who's the Chief Content Officer at IBT. And today we're going to be talking about online in Mexico with Mindi, Carey and Manny from the U.S. Department of Commerce. Please, Mindi, if you want to introduce yourself, and then Carey and Manny.
Of course. Thanks, Mercedes. My name is Mindi Hertzog, and I'm a Senior International Trade Specialist with the U.S. Commercial Service Office, which is a part of the Department of Commerce based in Orlando, Florida.
Carey? Or Manny?
I can introduce you. So I'm joined by two amazing colleagues, Ms. Carey Arun. She's the commercial officer and diplomat at the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City, and Manny Velazquez, a commercial specialist at the U.S. Consulate in Monterey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Next slide.
Mercedes, do you want me to start if Susanna can do the slide?
Absolutely. I think Susanna is monitoring the slides, so if you want to move to the next one, please.
And if she can't, I can just start and we can pull up the slides when she's ready. So you're going to hear from Carey and Manny in a few minutes, but I want to first, before we start, say a big thanks to IBT Online for inviting us to speak today. IBT has great partnerships with many state governments, and just last year won the U.S. President's E Award, which is the highest recognition any U.S. company can receive for making a significant contribution to the expansion of U.S. exports. So I'd like to congratulate IBT on receiving that prestigious award, and it's a very exciting award that they received. So you may be wondering, who is the U.S. Commercial Service? We are a federal agency housed within the U.S. Department of Commerce, and our mission is very simple, to ensure that U.S. businesses can compete and win in the global marketplace. So you may ask, well, how can the U.S. government do that? Well, as U.S. government, we can obviously open doors that no one else can in markets around the world. We have accomplished colleagues like Carey and Manny in more than 80 countries who can provide you with on-the-ground knowledge and connections. Susanna, if you can move one or two slides further. So with regards to your digital strategy, we have a ton of free market research on our website. We can counsel you on how to meet your digital objectives, and we will talk you through the best practices of website internationalization. So we'll help you understand, okay, what back-end fixes you should be making to your website, and encourage you to use key performance indicators so that you can benchmark your online success. There may be digital regulations in country that we would specifically want to counsel you on. For example, to be successful in Mexico, you will want the country code top-level domain name. So for those who aren't as techie, it's the .mx. So it would be yourcompany.com here, but then in Mexico it would be .com.mx. So in some countries, there are strict regulations about foreign firms, U.S. firms, obtaining this .mx, .fr, depending on the country. However, in Mexico, you can get this as a U.S. company. Another example that I just want to bring to mind with Mexico involves a food and beverage company. So a U.S. company used cartoon images of fruits and vegetables on their products in digital advertising. What they didn't know in Mexico, and they didn't talk to us first, was the general health law prohibits advertisements with fruit or vegetables when the products only contain fruit or vegetable flavor or artificially naturally flavored additives. So these are just a few of the things that we would counsel you on. And I didn't know until right before this call that now Mexico laws prohibit all cartoons and advertisements. So it's good to always connect with the U.S. Embassy and consulates around the world to find out these nuances. So I'll end by saying the commercial service is here to support your export growth every step of the way. And if you want to know more, please reach out to me. And with that, I'll introduce Diplomat and Commercial Officer Carey Arun.
Hi, thanks, Mindy. Hello to everyone from Mexico City. It's a pleasure to speak to you today. A special thanks to IBT Online for allowing us to present. You can go to the next slide. So Mexico is a really interesting market. Although we are neighbors with the United States, it is a different market. A lot of people think it's very, very easy to just sell to Mexico because it is so close. In some ways that is true, in other ways it is not true. And so I just want to take a minute to spend on the importance of the bilateral trade relationship. So last year, it was $604 billion in bilateral trade between the U.S. and Mexico. A large percentage of that is goods, both U.S. to the United States, to the Mexico and Mexico to the United States. You can actually see the trade from Mexico to the US in goods is larger than what we export to Mexico. It's kind of interesting because Mexico can be considered the manufacturing hub for North America, but it really tells a story about how interconnected our supply chains are and how interconnected we are with Mexico. With that being said, it is still difficult to do business here. But not so difficult that you would want to disclude the market. So it's the second largest trading partner for the U.S. in goods and our third largest export market out of all. And it's our second largest supplier of imports. So almost 14% of all imports come from Mexico. We can go to the next slide. Suzanne, can you go to the, yeah, thanks. And so just to show where Mexico lies in the way of exports. So if you're looking to sell your product or service overseas, Canada last year was our highest export market from the United States, then followed very closely by Mexico, China, and then Japan. So as you can see, it makes a lot of sense to consider Mexico as a market. And as Mindy was saying earlier, we just want to make sure that you do it in a smart way where you'll have success here. So next slide. So why would you consider exporting to Mexico? So of course, the close proximity and the low cost of business travel, transportation, and logistics. We share a 2,000-mile border. Very, very interesting that also we have 38 airports that have direct flights to the United States. There are large regional hubs here for all of the major shipping companies. And so as you're looking to sell for e-commerce, you can very easily use a DHL, a FedEx, a UPS, or even the regular postal service to ship your product as a one-off shipment to a consumer here in Mexico. Also, market size diversity and a really rapidly growing middle class make it a really good market for products and services, especially through e-commerce channels. The middle class is really significantly growing. It's 40% of the total 46%, sorry, of the total population. It's definitely a good market for a lot of U.S. products and services. And there's a big desire for U.S. produced goods and services here in Mexico. In addition, there's the cultural and family connection. So there's a high degree of familiarity with U.S. brands, including marketing, as well as U.S. way of doing business that benefits U.S. firms as they're looking to enter into the market. We can go to the next slide. So why would you also consider exporting to Mexico? This is really important. I have 2 slides on it. But in addition to our shared land border and shared cultural ties, we also have a wonderful new trade agreement called the U.S Mexico-Canada trade agreement. This replaced NAFTA. NAFTA was in place for 20 years. This went into force last year. And so there are zero tariffs for U.S. made products and services and a generally predictable framework for doing business. So what does that mean? Most U.S. goods qualify for zero duties, as well as the longstanding trade agreement and relationships between the United States and Mexico give an extra degree of business climate transparency, and predictability. Further, we have a relatively economic and political stable government here. Our economic growth rate is relatively low but stable, and there's very little political turmoil here for the last several decades. I would say that the current administration has impacted some of this stability. We're seeing some changes in policy and regulation, but that shouldn't hinder you from considering Mexico as a market. Also, I think COVID, Mexico's in a recession just like everywhere else in the world. We're anticipating the country to bounce back rather strongly. And so, again, we think it's a solid market for you to consider as you're looking through your e-commerce channels to develop new markets. Next slide. So in Mexico, we have 3 commercial centers. So usually if you're an exporter without previous experience in Mexico, you kind of underappreciate the size, scope, and diversity of the individual markets here in Mexico. We have 3 distinct markets. They're the 3 largest cities. They're also the 3 places that we have commercial service offices in Mexico: Mexico City, Monterey, and Guadalajara. Mexico City is the political capital. It's the starting point for any company interested in doing business in Mexico. There are major manufacturing and distribution centers here. It's also one of the largest cities in the world with 22 million people, and it's centrally located within the country. But then you have Monterey, which is actually the industrial trade hub. It's along the border. It's known for its pro-business attitude. There are major automotive, household appliance, electrical equipment, packaging, and heavy manufacturing industries here. It's really our industrial powerhouse in Mexico. And then we have Guadalajara. It's in the agricultural heartland, and it's also known as Mexico's Silicon Valley. And so it's home to many, many, many R&D centers, distribution and logistics providers, as well as it has the largest expo center in all of Latin America. So it hosts many, many, many regional trade shows. Next slide. So really, why or how would you enter the Mexican market? And so we have just really 4 key tips for you. Mexican presence. I know that a lot of the companies on the line today are e-commerce companies. But if you're looking to make a big splash in the market, or you're looking to do more than just single one-off e-commerce sales, we strongly encourage you to have a local representative or a distributor. You may consider opening a distribution warehouse here. This really helps buyers understand your commitment to the market. It also gives them assurance that you're going to be able to facilitate any sort of concerns or product issues that you may have in the market. Depending on your type of market entry, we generally recommend that you do a local or regional representative. It yields better results than a single one-off national-wide distributor. We also recommend price. Price is important, but not always deciding factor. So you want to make sure that you're highlighting value, quality, and service on your products and services, including any sort of after-sales service or marketing support, or any sort of assistance with the product that you may offer. So Mexican consumers are pretty interesting. Generally, they do look at price, but they also look at value. And so a U.S. product and service is really important because they consider that the U.S. products have a higher quality and value than those that are maybe coming from Asia or overseas markets. And then you want to make sure that you have product information, your website, any sort of material that you're providing in Spanish. Spanish is very, very key, although there is an expanding middle class here who is highly educated. A large percentage of the user base here in Mexico still predominantly speaks Spanish only. And so it's really, really important. And then one other thing that I just want to highlight is business etiquette and culture. And so if you are looking to make sales or partner with a Mexican representative here, use common international business sense. Take the time to cultivate relationships. That is very important in the market here in Mexico. Also, this has been an interesting conundrum as we face COVID and everything has gone virtual. People-to-people connections are still key, and so although you may not travel here, you want to make sure that you're selling on that connection through your e-commerce channels. And then if you do decide to have a distributor or an agent in country, it's really important that you develop that person-to-person relationship. Okay, next slide. So pretty simple, right? As we know that everyone will be looking to ship their products into Mexico, especially using e-commerce channels. And so what is really an important process in that? It's the import process to Mexico. Here in CS Mexico, we are very, very lucky that we have Manny in our Monterey office. He has a column that's called Ask Manny. He basically is our customs and import expert. And if he doesn't know the answer, he will work to find it for you. So we all rely on Manny to help us. And so now I'd like to turn it over to him, and he's going to talk a little bit about importing to Mexico.
Hey, hello, thank you, Carey. Hello, everyone. Well, I'm in charge of everything related with customs when you are exporting from United States your products to Mexico, and how is the import process. Let's see the next slide, just in order that you know how the Mexican import process works. In Mexico, I don't know if you're familiar with this. In Mexico, only Mexican entities are the one who can import in Mexico, because the Mexican importers has this Mexican tax ID, and they have an importer of record that are authorized by the Mexican government. And this is because the Mexican government wants someone responsible of the goods and to pay the taxes and comply with all the requirements. This is why it's important there's a Mexican entity, the one who import in Mexico. And because of that, the initial scenario, or the most best scenario in many cases, is that the Mexican importer take over all the import process from United States port, from the United States company, and they import the product from the beginning to the end, because they are the responsible before the Mexican government. And in this case, the responsibility of the U.S. porters ends at the border. You just put your product at the border, San Diego, Laredo, and then the Mexican is in charge of that. The next one, please. And I'm going to tell you, if you are exporting from United States, doing a door-to-door delivery, or if you are working as in an e-platform, you are selling through Amazon or Mercado Libre, I don't know, there's several platforms. You need to work with a custom broker. But this is the key. Let me show you here. If the U.S. porter is doing the door-to-door delivery from the U.S. porter plant to the place in Mexico, the client location, in that case, the U.S. company oversees the entire operation, contracting the custom broker, the trading company, that in Spanish is called comercializadora. That is the Mexican entity who is going to lend you the importer of record. Remember, like I said before, just Mexican entities are authorized in Mexico to import. And the trading company can be a very good solution for companies who are exporting from the United States, or who are exploring the market and they don't have the Mexican importer of record. And this is why you use a trading company to export from United States to Mexico. And in the middle, this trading company is going to help you to provide to the Mexican government all the permits and compliance to import your product. And this solution scenario is very effective if the company is exploring the Mexican market or initial exports or sales here in Mexico. this solution, in almost all the cases, the U.S. exporter is in charge of the pay everything involved in the middle of the transaction. And probably you hear this, the Incoterm is going to be the DDP. Like in the before case, when is the Mexican in charge of everything, you as a U.S. exporter, you're going to use the ex-work Incoterm. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but you're going to see that in your invoice when your contract with the Mexican company that you are working in. The next one, please. And I'm going to give you, for me, the 3 most important secrets that you need to know in order to be successful exporting to Mexico. We're going to see now in the next slide. And the first one is going to be the HS code. We're going to see in the slide just when it appears here. But the most important thing for me, and probably you're going to notice that when you are export to Mexico, is the HS code. This is the key factor, because with the HS code that is provided by a certified custom broker in Mexico or in the US side, the custom broker is going to make the proper classification of your good, and with that they're going to receive you're going to receive the HS code, and the HS code is going to provide you all the requirements requested by the Mexican government. Before you send your products to Mexico, you're going to know, and I think this is the best strategy, that you are going to know all the requirements. For example, if you require comply with a Mexican standard that is called norms, the labeling, if you need to comply with another permit, I don't know, there's some kind of certification of free sale, for example, or if you need to provide a special document because it's a no easy identification product. For example, if you are sending powder, liquid, gel, is the Mexican customs call these kind of products no easy identification products, and this is why send products through an courier company can be difficult sometimes and can be stuck at the Mexican border. The second secret that I think is going to be super important in order that you be successful exporting to Mexico is going to be to have the right custom broker, because is the Mexican custom broker or the custom broker in the United States, you can work with both, is the one who can help you to dispatch their goods through the Mexican customs. You can, so many times there's a legal representative inside of the Mexican companies who can do that. But if you are doing a door-to-door delivery, then my suggestion and the way that you can be successful is working with a well-known custom broker. And the third secret that I think is going to be very important for you, and I think this is one of the most important, is that you have the resources of the U.S. Commercial Service. And anytime you have any doubt related to how to send your products to Mexico, what is the situation related to the regulations about your products, the HS codes, or if you need a list of custom brokers or Mexican custom law or Mexican customs label specialist, you can contact us. In my case that I'm in charge of these topics, I'm more than happy to help you. Even if you are have your shipment stuck at custom, you can call us and we can see what is the situation and what potential solution scenario you can find to send your products to Mexico. Then keep my email near to you in order if you have any question. And the most interesting thing, all these services that I provide as a Ask Manny services is free. Take advantage of that. Carey?
Perfect. So we have a poll that we would love for all the attendees to answer. You'll get here. Are you already doing business in Mexico? Select one of this. I'm gonna give a couple of seconds more. And Mindi, or if you wanna say something before we jump to the next section, or Carey.
So this is Carrie. I was just going to say on the last page of our slides, or if you have any questions or concerns, you can always go to trade.gov /Mexico, and that'll get you to our webpage here for CS Mexico. On our webpage, there's a link to Ask Manny where you can find information about importing and customs. Also, could you go back one slide? Sorry. Also, there is our country commercial guide. If you've ever read like the CIA World Factbook about a country, we have a very similar thing. It's called a country commercial guide. And that is basically how do you do business in a foreign market? So we have these for all over the world. In particular, our one for Mexico is again at trade.gov /Mexico country commercial guide. It's a really, really great resource. If you have any questions about the market here, it's a good place to start as you're looking to expand your business. Thanks so much.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I hope everyone can hear me. My name is Andrew with IBT Online. I'm hopping in and taking control from Susanna Hardy, who unfortunately is having and experiencing some audio difficulties. So really was going to take on the role here and pass the torch from the U.S. Commercial Services. So thank you very much for your presentation there. I think it was very helpful. I think my job is just to expand on some of the basics and what we know from the online world in Mexico and as a part of Latin America. So just starting off with some of the basics here, looking at Mexico from a geographical standpoint, economical standpoint. They're the 15th largest economy in the world and the second largest within Latin America. And so they have 11 free trade agreements with 46 different countries, including the U.S. and Canada most efficiently. They are a very young population. They've got about 30% of their total population under the age of 18, and very favorable demographics for the future of exports, and for the future of their economy. And when you look at their infrastructure, it's a bit patchy. They've got about 3 cities that take up the entire country's, about 60% of the internet use are through Monterey, Guadalajara, and Mexico City. And outside of that, it's a very rural area that that isn't really going to be using the internet as much. So it's very concentrated to just those 3 cities. And within 5 of those cities, including those 3 that I listed among a few others, that takes up about 95% of the U.S. exports. So as you can see, it's very concentrated to certain parts of Mexico, where there's a young population, where it's a very urban environment. And that's really where the exports are growing and are most popular from the U.S. standpoint. And so when we look at Mexico and the online world as a whole, they've got, this is the world as a whole. So this is taking a step back, looking at the world demographics. We see 7.8 billion people in the world. There's about 5.2 billion unique mobile users around the world. And some good numbers as compared to, the increasing amount of social media users and also internet users. How that's increased year on year. You can see 4.6 billion people using the internet daily, 4.2 billion people using social media daily, and how much that has increased, through COVID and through many of these emerging markets. And so this next slide here is more about the Mexico online world and how that's impacted the world demographics. And really, when you look at the total number of mobile internet users, there's about 88 million people within Mexico that use the internet on a daily basis, use cell or Wi-Fi. When you look at the amount of average daily time that is spent on mobile internet, is about 4 hours and 39 minutes, and that's a heck of a lot of time that people are spending on that. And they see 129 million people are within Mexico, which takes out, and as I mentioned before in the last slide, about 80% of them are urbanized and within those areas. So it's good to hear that those 3 to 5 main cities are really those target areas, and a lot of that population is spent within or are within those regions. There's about 92 million internet users, takes up about 71% of the population. There's about 9 hours of daily time spent on the internet, which is an insane amount of time. And 95% of them, when they're accessing the internet, they're going to be accessing through mobile devices. So that's really some of the key points to note there. And then here is a slide I apologize that I was speaking about before, where you see about 4 hours is spent using mobile internet. So again, a lot of time is spent on the internet and on their phones. And so that's where you're going to be finding them. You're going to be engaging with them and able to build those relationships and ultimately at the end of the day, increase your conversions in those markets. So this next slide here, we'll be speaking more about e-commerce in Latin America. So when you look at it as a whole, it's Latin America's largest e-commerce market. It's forecasted in 2021 to create up to $10 billion of revenue for the company or for the country. Its estimated growth rate of about 6% per annum before COVID, and it's weighing the factors between B2B and also B2C. So when you look at some of the activity here, we see that about 91% of the individuals who bought a product online had searched online and did the research beforehand. So they're always looking for value added to their lives, to whatever need is necessary for them at that moment before they go on and purchase. Some other interesting numbers here: only about 54% purchase a product online via mobile phone. Actually is more percentage-wise than those that go on a personal computer, a tablet, to purchase via e-commerce. So the majority are still using their mobile phones to purchase online. And so when you look at the Mexican online environment, and you also have this U.S. online presence, one of the main questions that's asked all the time is, why can't I just use my U.S. website to go online in Mexico? Well, there's many different reasons, but the big one that we really focus on and we're focusing on here is Google. Search engines are localized, and Google has 192 different search engines that are spread out across the world. They've got a search engine, of course, for Mexico, for Canada, for South Africa, for any of these top markets in the world. They've got a search engine that is localized for that local user audience. And so therefore, it's impossible to have a U.S. website that's tailored to the U.S. audience to reach that Mexico audience. And so here we have a prime example of two of our colleagues. We have one colleague that's located in Miami, Florida, and our colleague, Susanna, who's located in London, United Kingdom at the moment. And so they both did a search. They both searched up squeakless dog toys. And our colleague here in the US got things that we're very familiar with: Chewy.com, Amazon.com, Yahoo.com. And our colleague Susanna, who's in the UK, she got things that personally I've never heard of before, but are relevant to her and to her UK colleagues and friends: barksandbunnies.co.uk, timeforpause.co.uk, or even you see there Amazon.co.uk. So it gives them two completely different results depending on where they're at, and that's really the impact that a localized business development website will have, not only in the US, but also in your Mexican market. And so just to take it a step further, a lot of times people will think that translations alone will do the justice of creating creating Mexican engagement. But really, and as examples here for Mexico and Spain, even the verbiage for both of those markets are completely different. In Mexico, they use the word auto, and in Spain, they're going to be using the word coche. So depending on, if you're very focused in the automotive market and you use the word coche in the Mexican market, there's a very high chance that it's not going to be as engaging as the word auto. And it's going to be likewise for the Spanish market. So it's very dependent on the nuances within each of those. And that's what really is behind a client-focused and localized business development presence. So upcoming here, we have a few different examples of doing the online global programs for Canada and Mexico. Obviously, just focusing on Mexico here. So, we have two websites, two screenshots on the right side of the screen for a company called New England Machinery. As you can see, the branding, the awareness, the user feeling is all the same on both of those websites. So there's no real big differences. Obviously, the big differences are the imagery, the obviously language, then translation changes. But it's there to speak to the local search engines, create more lead generation, be front of mind for the existing clients, and then also provide some visibility. During COVID, you're not actually, in a lot of these countries still, you're not able to do trade shows and trade missions. But for New England Machinery, it was an incredible tool for them to be online, speaking to their clients, their prospects, without having to travel and meet them in person. And another example, speaking to Armor in Michigan here, they went global in Mexico, Canada, among some other markets, but for them, brand recognition was number one. Having the same brand recognition, the same brand awareness, the trust and the credibility that came with that was absolutely massive for them. They were able to gather new distributors through the website they created in Mexico, grow their business in, not only Mexico, but some of the other top markets. And of course, for them, increase their sales. So we've got some really great content on our website that talks about this exact case study and some of the positive effects that they saw. And then just going back to some of the analytics of, how websites are interacting with an international audience and a global audience, really. So here we have an example of a Mexico website and how effective it is. So with the .mx domain, a website that's hosted in Mexico, translated for the Mexican language, Mexican Spanish, you can see that there's about 8,900 sessions that are generated from Mexico, but only when you look at the rest of, Northern America, South America, Latin America, that it did have some reach to, only 930 to Chile, only 280 to Colombia, 70 to the U.S. And it really wasn't effective for those other regions because it was so tailored to Mexico. And even you take that a step further, you look at, where exactly are these people searching and finding your website within Mexico. And no surprise, you see the top three: Mexico City, Guadalajara, Santiago, Merida. So you're able to see these analytics. You're able to see where people are looking for your website and maybe some of the top markets that are, to make it even more localized within these countries that you're targeting. Just to say that the analytics are all online. You're able to track your engagements, your conversions, your traffic, and make sure that you're able to adapt and then better engage with those audiences. And lastly, before I pass it over to our colleague Mercedes, just want to detail a successful buyer's journey in Mexico for Mexico exporters. And really, it's about creating a great local user experience. So really, when you have your .mx website and you supplement that with online marketing, things like search engine marketing, social media marketing, these are both things that Mercedes is going to be talking about. That's really where you are implementing keywords, the Mexican Spanish, the Mexican peso, the metric system. It's locally hosted. It's digitally compliant with the Mexico online environment. They're mobile first, they're relevant images, they're local testimonials, contact details, and all of this amounts into a great local user experiences that engages with that audience. So just to speak to that, well, actually, before I do pass it over to Mercedes, we wanted to open it up for a poll. So just to the audience here, if you'd like to learn more about localized websites and the online global programs and how to engage with your Mexican audience, your target audience, among some of your other international audiences, here's a poll of yes, please contact me, or thinking about it. So we'll leave this up for just a moment here. And thank you very much for all of your responses here. I think we're getting quite a bit of engagement. As I can see, a lot of you are saying, yes, please contact me. So I thank you for all of those responses. I think we're just wrapping up for the last few seconds here. And then as I will pass off to Mercedes, who's going to be talking about how to engage with your Mexican prospects and clients once you have that business development website. Mercedes.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Yes, we're gonna talk a little bit more about how to engage with our Mexican prospects. So let's dive into that international buyer persona, especially in the times we're in today. International buyer personas can differ from your domestic persona. actually on this slide, there are a few questions you should ask yourself, like, are there multiple buyer personas for my export markets? How do they find me? How do they care about? Each buyer persona is clearly different and their messaging is respectful of that. For example, L'Oreal is frequently cited for how spot on they are with their international marketing. L'Oreal USA shows on its website only women located on the top floor. And this shows the company's importance to women empowerment, showing how women are in charge and that they are the ones making decisions. L'Oreal Brazil, on the other hand, they look pretty different from the previous one. As you can see by the imagery and background, you can tell that they are in Brazil based on the water and mountains in the background. The atmosphere looks like it's modern but tied to nature. All things that are pertinent to Brazilian people's lives. The messaging is even different. They are saying that they have been innovating for the past 60 years to share beauty with all Brazilians. And lastly, but not least, L'Oreal Mexico shows an office environment that is a bit more relaxed and one that includes both men and women making decisions or collaborating together. It is really interesting because compared to the US and Brazil, L'Oreal Mexico is the only one with a man in the picture. So as we can see, each buyer persona is clearly different and their messaging is also different. So in this graph table, we can see how Mexico is the 6th in the world on time spent using the internet, with an average of 8 hours, 21 minutes spent, compared with the US that spends an average of 7 hours online. So that's a lot of time they're spending online. Sorry. The bar chart on the right side is amazing as it shows Mexico right out there as a world leader in time spent using social media. Mexico ranks 6th at 3 hours and 25 minutes. This compares to a global average that is a full 1 hour less at 2 hours 24 minutes. The USA, by the way, is just barely over 2 hours for social media. So it's almost an hour difference, which is a lot. Social media is in fact really important throughout Latin America. In the top 8 countries in the world ranked by usage, 4 are in Central and South America, which are Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina. So we can go to the next slide. Perfect. Social media in Mexico is completely dominated by YouTube and Facebook, just like the rest of Central and South America. Mexico is an incredibly responsive market. We have lots of examples where we're running similar campaigns in Mexico, and for example, in Mexico and Europe, and we can see that in Mexico, we can easily hit 3-4 times the engagement rates. I will show you an example of this later. But I wanted to start with this chart just to highlight the main platforms in Mexico. You can see that the top 3, again, are YouTube, Facebook, and WhatsApp, and these are used by at least 90% of internet users in Mexico. So as companies, this is really important, as it is absolutely clear where you have to be to reach your prospects. And yep, next slide. Perfect. So here's one of the examples. This is one of clients, Amzo, who has a dedicated website for the Mexican market. It also has another website for Australia, for the UK, for France, for India. But this one specifically for Mexican has all their distributors listed on the website. So one of the marketing efforts that we're doing through social media is driving users to the site, and this is driving positive results to the distributors. The website has several call to actions for users to check where they can purchase their products, and that's when they get to the list of the distributors where they can and see where they can purchase the products from. So distributors are very happy with the strategy, as this website has driven a lot of traffic and as a result, a lot of increased sales. Perfect. In addition to call to actions on the website, and industry-related content is also created as part of the marketing strategy and also promoted through social media. The objective is to make users go to the website, read the content, and take actions on the site. Actions such as calling a specific phone number, clicking on a link to get additional information, send an email to the distributor, among other actions. All of these actions taken by the users are tracked in order to measure the user's behavior once they land on the website and how we can best optimize the content and marketing campaigns. Here is a great example of how different buyer persona interact with social media campaigns. This is an example from a Facebook campaign where we were promoting the same product, similar imagery and message, although of course localized and staying relevant to our local audience. So we look at results for the specific post. For the UK, over 1,200 engagements, and we were super pleased with it. We thought we had really good results. But then when you look at Mexico, we were blown away with over 20,000 engagements. So when we compare them, we said, okay, what's going on? So it's not that the UK is doing bad, but it's just that each market reacts differently. And here we can see that Mexico works really well, and there's a lot of engagement on social media. Next slide. So here we have at the same company, but looking at their Facebook posting over a year and comparing Mexico with the UK. So we said there was a lot more engagement for Mexico. You can see that in the blue and the red bars. Just look at Mexico versus the UK. Engagement here is measured as the number of times someone clicked on it, liked it, shared the posting, and that is important for long-term brand awareness. But what about lead generation? At the end of the day, that's something that it's one of the things that matter the most as a company and as a distributor. So if we look closer, we can see that the UK and Mexico are much more similar if we're looking for lead generation. That is reflected in the green and yellow bars on the second chart, on the two charts. These show the number of times people have clicked on where can I buy or how to use. So you can see that a Mexican buyer persona engages more easily than the English, but lead generation or actual sales is about the same. The buyer personas of the two markets react differently. So as we can see, for Mexico, we need more engagement in order to get more or less the same amount of leads as for the English people in England. So in the following slide, we have added an infographic, which you can find here. You can download the infographic on the right-hand toolbar, which it gives you a great summary of the Mexico online environment. And here is another poll that we would love for you to answer. So would you like to learn more about online marketing and the online global programs? Here, let's see, yes, I see people are answering. Yes, very good. Wonderful, let's give it a couple more seconds. And great. So now moving on to finishing this amazing webinar, I'll pass it to my colleague Andrew to see if there are any questions that you guys might have that we can answer. Please don't hesitate to put your questions in the right-hand toolbar so we can answer them.
Of course. Thank you so much, Mercedes. I appreciate the helping hand as far as the how to engage with your Mexican prospects, your international buyer personas there, and how to create content that engages with them. So really this last section, we're just going to be spending the last few minutes just with some takeaways for the Mexico market, creating in the online world, creating a localized presence. Really, as of today, your prospects, your clients, your future employees, your suppliers, they're all online. They're all searching online, and especially in Mexico, it's a very mobile-first, mobile-friendly market, and they're all searching via their search, their via Google.mx and via their mobile phones. And so, the best way to really target those audiences, the very mobile-friendly audience, is creating that localized website to help you get found, be understood, and do business with your consumers in Mexico. So, just to go on to some of the takeaways in the next slide here, really some key points. 2/3 of the population are active internet users. That's about 88 million people. They are high engagement with social media, as Mercedes was speaking about. They're very mobile friendly and mobile first. They have about 93% of the market that is using Google.mx. They are dynamically e-commerce driven and a very mobile way. And of course, the Mexican Spanish is variably different than the Spanish spoken in other parts of Latin America and Spain. And all of this really drives us to see a best practice view of creating a Mexican localized website and the benefits that it provides U.S. exporters. Again, I think this next slide, I think, just looking at the local user experience, and obviously the analytics that's behind it. And again, yeah. So, when you put together the business development website that I spoke about, when you put together the online marketing social media that Mercedes spoke about, and you really drive all the main points on the right, that is going to give you the best local user experience for the Mexican market, to really engage with your Mexican prospects, and to hopefully start that conversation online and close more sales. Continue to grow your exports, your sales, your brand, your business through these two core competencies in the online way. And so I think as we're wrapping up here, of course, we want to say thank you. Thank you so much to Mindi, Carey, and Manny from the U.S. Department of Commerce. Thank you so much for jumping on and helping us out. And despite the technical difficulties today, I think it was a wonderful presentation. So thank you all. I do know that we have a few questions as we're wrapping up in the last few minutes here. So I guess we have a question, and I guess I'll ask it to myself. Somebody was asking, where do I find more information about the online global programs? And that's a great question. Really, it's going to be all on our website. We have a lot of information on the online global programs, including business development websites and international online marketing. Our URL is ibt.onl. I believe Susanna can probably drop that in the chat box if it's helpful. And so we have a lot of state-driven information resources, but also market-driven resources for your top international markets. And so let's see, are service companies eligible for online global programs? It's a great question. Mercedes, if you wanted to take that.
Sure. Yes, actually, we've managed some services before. And so to answer your question, yes, we've had great successes. So please we'll leave if you've answered yes to one of the polls, we'll reach out to you, and we'll be able to talk a little bit further to see how we can help you with your services and expand that.
Perfect.
But
thank you.
Yeah, you also have a lot of resources on our IBT online website, so please don't hesitate to check it. Susanna just added the link on the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mercedes. And yes, so service companies are eligible. And then also just to a question for Mindi, Carey, or Manny, one of you three. I think we have a company that is in education and language services. They're asking, how do we apply for trade services?
This is Mindy. I'm happy to take it. They would apply for this the same way. So if you're talking about the U.S. Commercial Service, we work with a lot of educational institutions and also educational technology companies. So yeah, we can help support them overseas.
Perfect.
Was that the
Thank
question?
Yes.
That helped answer it?
Yes, that was perfect. Thank you so much for that. I think that should help out our viewer. And thank you for that question again from the audience. I know we're getting a bunch more questions here, so I think as we're closing down this presentation, we'll just get one or two more. Let's see. Somebody asked the question, you mentioned the Mexican domain name .mx. Are there any restrictions? Do I have to register for this? I guess I could take part of this and maybe our partners at U.S. Department of Commerce can maybe finish up anything that I missed out. But really, yes, the domain name is purchasable. It's .mx, and that's what's most popular within that market. As far as there are any restrictions, it is something that you have to purchase online and consistently keep maintained. There are some regulations as far as what you can put on the .mx and what it's going to be used for. As it will be a little bit different than the U.S. registration. But as far as I know, things like GoDaddy, you're able to go online, register for it straight off of the internet, and from there build your website on that domain. Let's see, one last question here. So for marketing in Mexico, how many platforms do you recommend using? And I'll pass that question over to Mercedes as far as social media platforms.
Yes, well, I think it all depends the type of business you have, but at least it's very important to be on Facebook, and also depending on the business, LinkedIn might be a really good social media platform to be in as well and do marketing there. But definitely Facebook is a priority, creating content, sharing, and doing some paid advertising as well, as we've seen how engaged the Mexican population is in Mexico.
And then Mercedes, this is Carey in Mexico City. We also see both like eBay and YouTube as being really important for companies. And so that's eBay's not so traditional, but YouTube is. We see lots of product reviews and lots of companies using this tool to help them promote their product and drive to their website.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, we've also done, like, having a YouTube channel is good. Well, again, depending on the product or the service the company is selling, YouTube might be a fit or not. But yes, YouTube is definitely a really good platform to show specifically how a product works and how it can be used. Definitely. Also, as far as advertising methods, YouTube with videos are very engaging nowadays, and not only using videos on YouTube, but using videos on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, and even on LinkedIn are really good.
Mercedes, thank you so much. Yeah, of course, all of those social media platforms are very relevant to the Mexican audience, and obviously, and are going to be a little bit different in terms of how they're tailored to that audience. So I do want to say, I know we're wrapping up and running out of time here, so I want to say thank you so much for everyone that stuck around, bearing with us through these technical difficulties. Thank you so much to the U.S. Department of Commerce for coming on, speaking, presenting about the opportunities, the programs that they have to provide, a lot of help here. So we do have all of our contact information listed. Please reach out to us. We would love to get in contact and start the conversation about growing your exports in Mexico. But to that, I mean, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Please stay safe, be well, and we hope to see you all soon. Thank you.